Welcome back to Mrs. B Reads. We are working on I Am Malala, and we are in Chapter 5, The First Direct Threat. We're on page 32. Each morning, you guys good? Okay. Each morning, as my friends passed through the gate to school, a man across the street stood scowling at us. Ooh, scowling. Show me what that looks like. What does that look like? Scowling. Good, man. Good. Then one night, he arrived at our home, along with 6 elders from the community. I answered the door. He claimed to be a mufti, an Islamic scholar, and said he had a problem with the school. My father shooed me into the other room as this mufti and the elders crowded into our little house, but I heard every word. I am representing good Muslims, the mufti said, and we all think your girls' high school is a blasphemy. Whoa. Do you know what the word blasphemy means? I'm not sure if that would be in the glossary. Let's take a look. Quick in the back. Let's see if blasphemy is in there. And if not, we might need to stop and look that up, because that's kind of a big deal. Yeah, it's not in the back. It's not in the glossary. So let's take a moment and look up the word blasphemy. Is anyone's Chromebook open? No? All right, I'll use mine. Hello, Merriam-Webster.com. Yeah, great. Blasphemy. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing based on the way it's worked? Yeah, why do you say that? My class said bad thing. Why do you think it's a bad thing?
I feel like he's saying it's a bad thing because he doesn't want girls to he doesn't want girls to get he doesn't want good stuff for girls there.
So let's just look at the way these sentences are structured, okay? And we all think your girls' high school is a blasphemy. You should close it. So those two sentences together, do they give you the feeling that blasphemy is a good thing or a bad thing? A bad thing. Okay, so the definition of blasphemy is the act of insulting or showing contempt or lack of reverence for God. So when you insult God, if you take the name of God in vain, that's considered blasphemy. Okay, so they're saying that this is like an act against God to have this school for girls. Does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense?
Yeah. It's like that. It's basically just saying, I don't like this school because it's like they think that it's breaking the Islamic law.
Exactly. So one of my students just said, it's like they're saying, we don't like the school, it's breaking Islamic law. Good, yeah. Okay, so, blasphemy. You should close it. Teenage girls should not be going to school. They should be in purdah. This mufti was clearly under the influence of Maulana, who had been running an illegal radio broadcast through which he gave sermons and rallied against people who he deemed un-Islamic. What we knew, but the mufti did not, was that his own niece attended my father's school in secret. Wow. As my father debated with the mufti, one of the elders spoke up. I had heard you were not a pious man, the man said to my father, but there are Qurans here in your home. Now, pious means devout and religious. So this guy's saying, I heard you weren't religious, but yet there's a Quran in the house. Of course there are, my father said. I am a Muslim. The mufti jumped back into the conversation, complaining about girls entering the school through the same gate that men also used. So my father came up with a compromise. The older girls would enter through a different gate. Eventually, the mufti backed down and the men left. But even as the door shut behind them, I had a knot in my stomach. I had grown up watching stubborn, prideful Pashtun men. Generally, when a Pashtun man loses an argument, he never really forgets or forgives. Even though I was a child, I knew this man was mistaken. I had studied the Quran, our holy book, since I was 5, and my parents sent me to a madrasa for religious studies in the afternoons when school finished. It was an open-air mosque. You guys remember what a mosque is, right? Okay, that was one of our vocab words. Where boys and girls studied the Holy Quran together. I loved learning the Arabic alphabet. I loved the strange and mysterious shapes of the letters, the sounds of the prayers as we all recited together, and the stories about how to live a life according to the teachings of Allah. My teacher there was a woman. She was kind and wise. For me, the madrasa was a place for religious education only. I would go to the Kushal school for all my other studies. But for many of these children, the madrasa would be the only place they would ever study. They wouldn't take any other classes, no science, no math, no literature. They would study only Arabic so that they could recite the Holy Quran. They didn't learn what the words actually meant, though, only how to say them. Let's think about that sentence right there. So, some kids got to go to school where they learned math and reading and writing and science, like you guys. And then they also went to this religious school to learn about their religion. Some kids only went to the religious school. But she says they didn't learn what the words actually meant, though, only how to say them. What does that tell you? I want you to really think about that. What does that tell you, Ben?
It's almost like they're like just walking, talking like Bibles. Because like all they know how to do is just say it.
Like robotic?
And how could they even like know like when to say it if they don't know what it means?
Interesting. Almost robotic, one of my kids said. Like they're just like walking, talking Bibles, but they don't really know the point of saying the words, right? It's very interesting. Nate. So I don't know. That's an interesting question. One of my kids just said, did they have bad teachers because they didn't tell them what the words mean? That's a really interesting question. I don't know. But I just think it's interesting that Malala points this out, that they didn't learn what the words actually meant, though, only how to say them. Interesting. I didn't think much of this difference until later, after the Mufti's visit to our house. One day I was playing with the neighborhood children in the alley, and when we were choosing up sides for a game of cricket, one of the boys said he didn't want me on his team. Our school is better than yours, he said, as if that explained things. I didn't agree one bit. My school is the better one, I said. Your school is bad, he insisted. It's not on the straight path of Islam. I didn't know what to make of this, but I knew he was wrong. My school was a heaven. Because inside the Kushal school, we flew on wings of knowledge. In a country where women aren't allowed out in public without a man, we girls traveled far and wide inside the pages of our books. In a land where many women can't read the prices in the markets, we did multiplication. In a place where as soon as we were teenagers, we'd have to cover our heads and hide ourselves from the boys who had been our childhood playmates, we ran as free as the wind. We didn't know where our education would take us. All we wanted was a chance to learn in peace, and that is what we did. The crazy world could carry on outside the walls of the Kushal school. Inside, we could be who we were. Our only concerns, once we dropped our school bags in the classroom, were the same as any child's at school: who would get the highest grade on the day's test and who would sit with whom at recess. It was a point of pride for me that almost every year in primary school, I won the trophy for first place at the end of the term. I was considered one of the top girls and the principal's daughter, and some girls thought maybe there was a connection between the two. But it was a point of pride for my father that he gave me no special treatment, and the proof was obvious to everyone when a new girl came to school when I was about 9. Her name was Malka Inur, and she was bright and determined, but I did not think she was nearly as clever as me. So on the last day of school that year, when the awards were announced, I was stunned. She had gotten first place, and I was second. I smiled politely as she received her trophy, but the minute I got home, I burst into tears. When my father saw me, he comforted me, but not in the way I wanted. It's a good thing to come in second, he said, because you learn that if you can win, you can lose. Nate, are you following along with me, my friend? And you should learn to be a good loser, not just a good winner. What do you think about that? Look at those 2 lines right there. It's a good thing to come in second, because you learn that if you can win, you can lose. And you should learn to be a good loser, not just a good winner. What do you think about that, Jake?
You can't win all the time.
You can't win all the time. So how should you be when you don't win? You should say congratulations. And what should happen inside you?
Just try to do better next
Try to do better next time. You know how we say, I never lose, right? I win or I learn, right? That's growth mindset. Yeah? We do a lot of work on growth mindset here. Okay, cool. I was too young and too stubborn to appreciate his words, and truth be told, I still prefer to be first. But after that term, I worked extra hard so I would never have to learn that particular lesson again. Another of my regular worries was whether Moniba was angry with me. She was my best friend, bookish like me, but almost like my twin. Almost like my twin. We sat together whenever we could, on the bus, at recess, in the classroom, and she made me laugh as no one else could. But we had a habit of fighting, and always over the same thing when another girl came between us. Are you my friend or hers? Moniba would say if I sat with another girl at recess. Moniba, I'd say, you were the one ignoring me. The worst part was when Moniba would refuse to talk to me. Then I would get angry at her for being so angry at me. Sometimes these spats would last for days. Eventually, I would miss her too much, and I would take responsibility for the fight. I seemed to always take the blame. Then she would make a funny face, and we'd fall apart laughing and forget our differences. Until the next time another girl came between us. How could a place where I learned so much and laughed so much be bad? Like and subscribe.